feel reassured that it is being piloted by a young minister who is not only young but also very keenly involved in sports activities. So I am sure the bill and the mood of this House in their presentations would be taken in letter and spirit by the Honourable Minister. I have a couple of suggestions and a couple of queries, sir. Now, India signed this UNESCO Convention against doping in 2005 and you ratified it in 2007. Now, why has it taken almost 15 to 16 long years to bring in this bill? We've seen the other day also on Antarctica, whenever international conventions are signed, treaties are signed, and when it mandates legislation, it seems to be taking a pretty long time. And I'm not in full know-how of why the delay, but the Honourable Minister can kindly explain that, sir. There are a couple of issues relating to the bill, sir. The World Anti-Doping Code, the WADA code, as we call it, makes a very clear distinction between majors and minors. And it sets a lesser punishment for the minors. In the bill piloted by the Honourable Minister, if you see Clause 2, Subclause D of the bill, athlete is defined as any person. Now, to be more specific, the bill can contain a separate subclause under Clause 2, which defines minors as persons below the age of 18. And further, Clause 6, which talks about the consequences of anti-doping rule violations, insert a separate provision which states that minors will be subjected to lesser punishments, like letting them off with a warning, decreasing the duration of suspension, and not basically publishing the name of such minor who has committed this anti-doping violation as under your Clause 27(1). The other WADA code guidelines, sir, which talks about the significance and independence and impartiality of the National Anti-Dope Agency, the NADA. However, the way in which the current bill is structured, the central government has its own say in appointing and removing the Director General of NADA, thereby breaching the ideals contained in the WADA code. I suggest that the bill should have a provision which states explicit qualification for the Director General's appointment under Clause 15, Subclause 1, sir. Director General should be a person who excels in this activity. It should not be meant for any retired officials, or it should not be meant for any political adjustments. So if the bill is very clear, it makes it easier for the government to move in that direction. And now coming to the removal of the Director General, Clause 15, Subclause 8 defines the grounds for removal as a proven misbehavior, incapacity, and then the third is such other ground. Now, the meaning of such other ground is not very clear. I suggest that the phrase such other ground be defined more specifically so as to ensure no unfettered discretion being used by the central government in the Director General's removal, sir. These are being very specific because you are reflecting the UNESCO Convention, and you emerging, India today emerging not only as a big financial strong nation, but also in the sports we are emerging as a very strong nation. So these very clear descriptions in our law makes it in tune with the various laws in other developed countries, sir. And the same analogy applies even in the disciplinary panels and appeals panel also. They face the threat of government interference. The grounds of removal are not specified in clauses 1 and 12 respectively. I suggest that these be stated in the text of the bill itself. And finally, on educating the people about the demerits of doping, which spoils the athlete's career. Part 4 of the UNESCO Convention against Anti-Doping in Sports requires state parties to engage in imparting educational programs on anti-doping. It also requires states to provide accurate information on the harm of doping to the ethical values of sports, the health consequences of doping. The government can take note of these obligations and create educational sensitization programs for the athletes. Such programs will also help prevent negligent or unknowing violations of the anti-doping bill, sir. With these, I welcome the bill, sir, and I would also like to place on record that I come from Nizamabad, where the world boxing champion Nikhil Zareen comes from. So I'm very proud that today I've been able to be part of this bill. And of course, Telangana, like rest of the country, today has been producing many wonderful sportspersons who have excelled internationally. So it is not just confined. Of course, Haryana has always been a very good example for us, inspiration for us. But today, the entire country is working on those lines. Now, keeping this in mind, the state of Telangana, the government of Telangana has also been developing and encouraging sports in a similar manner by not just through educational stuff, but also in terms of very good budgetary support.
Thank you.
So I welcome the bill, sir, and I congratulate the Honourable Minister.
Thank you. Dr. John Britasji.